In this video, I'm going to be installing the Dal Soggio XR bladder kit on my 2024 WP XACT closed cartridge forks. Inside the Dal Soggio XR kit, you get two bladder chambers. You can see one here. The other one I've already installed on one fork leg. A couple of stickers. You get some plastic inserts which allow you to use a pin wrench on the stock fork cap to remove that, and you get a setting sheet which details the compression shim stack and also the required oil for the cartridge and also the fork, also the bladder pressure and the suggested base settings for compression and rebound. There's also a link to an installation video. Here you can see the stock 2024 WP upper closed cartridge chamber and the internal component. The main components on this assembly are the compression stack, piston and spring. The spring applies pressure to the piston, which pressurizes the oil which is in the chamber below. On the Dal Soggio, it replaces the piston and spring with a bladder, which has the advantage of no stiction, basically. So one disadvantage of this is that you get stiction from this O-ring and the piston rubbing on the chamber walls, which affects the feeling in small bumps in small movement of the fork. So I'm expecting the bladder to result in a plusher initial ride, so really keen to try this out. Some of the features of the Dal Soggio XR kit is, you can see here, it has a adjustable ring which controls the preload of the spring, and here you can see the compression stack. The details of the shim stack are listed in the setting sheet, and then the bladder, and I'm going to set it at the suggested pressure, but you can adjust the pressure if you want. And here you can see the top cap of the Dal Soggio XR kit. You've got your compression adjuster, and then you've got two screws. The one marked B is for the bladder used to inflate it, and the one F is for the fork chamber and used to bleed air. Okay, I'm going to start the installation. I've already completed one fork leg. The method is exactly the same for both fork legs. Before you start working on suspension, really good idea to clean all the dirt off. I've already done that. And also back up your compression and rebound. Rebound is down on the bottom. Fully unwind them anti-clockwise. So I've done that. The first step is to remove the fork cap. I've got it clamped. If you don't have a holder like this, you can loosen the cap in the forks. And to loosen the cap, you'll need a 50mm hex wrench. And then you can go ahead and drain the oil. Okay, next I'm going to remove the rebound adjuster from the bottom of the fork. I've got it clamped in soft jaws, and you'll need a 22mm socket. And that's what the rebound adjuster looks like. And next you can go ahead and remove the cartridge. And before you remove the spring, it's a good idea to measure the spring length, which has preload on it. I'm measuring 467mm. So when I install the Dal Soggio kit, I'll check that it's the same compressed spring length As I mentioned at the start of the video, with the Dal Soggio kit, you can adjust the preload, and I'll check that. And then you can go ahead and remove the spring. It comes off pretty easily. It's just got a collar, which you pull back the spring and it pops off. You can remove the spring, your spacers, which you'll not be using. And you're left with a cartridge. The next step is to remove the chamber at the top of the cartridge. To do that, you need to hold securely the rod, and you'll need some soft jaws to mount into the vise. The diameter of the rod here is 27.33 millimeters. At least that's what my one's measured. So the diameter of your soft jaws needs to be the same or slightly larger. I made these myself. I did it so it's 27.38 millimeters, and they fit perfectly. But if you have exactly 27 millimeter ones, they will not fit. The rod's too big. And then you can go ahead and mount it in the vise. The next step is to remove the cap on the top of the chamber. To do that, you can either use a KTM special tool, or Dal Soggio provide these plastic inserts which fit into the top of the cap, and then you can use a pin wrench to remove. I've got this tool, so I'm going to go ahead and use this. And it comes off, it's not very tight, so it comes off pretty easily. And then you can go ahead and remove the assembly. And you need a cloth because it does leak out oil when you're doing this. Okay, then you can go ahead and drain any oil. Okay, with the oil drained, you can now go ahead and remove the chamber. It's held in place with some Loctite, so you need to heat this area of the chamber, and then you've got multiple choices. You can use a 32 millimeter wrench or an adjustable wrench, or you can use the fork cap tool. I've got a 32 millimeter wrench, so I'm going to use that to remove it, and a hot air gun to heat up this area. And to test how hot it is, you can spray a little bit of water on it. That's not quite hot enough. Okay, that looks as though it's hot enough now, so I'll try and remove it using the 32. And yeah, unscrewing. High strength Loctite is used, so if you don't heat it, there's pretty much no way you'll get it off. And there you can see the remains of the Loctite. It's a red Loctite, and I'm going to clean that off thoroughly. So I'm using a pick tool initially to clean most of the Loctite off, and then I'll carefully use a wire brush and some brake cleaner to finish. And when you're working on the cartridge, make sure you don't get any debris down inside it. Okay, that looks good. And to install the Dal Soggio chamber, I'm going to be using Loctite 2701, which is a high-strength, low-viscosity, oil-resistant thread locker, which is ideal for this application. And next I'm going to remove the compression adjuster. It's just unscrews. And then carefully use a screwdriver just to pry it off. And then you can remove the bladder. My chamber, the bladder top cap was not screwed in, it was just sitting there. So if yours is screwed in, you'll need to use a pin wrench to remove it. The next step is to put some oil into the chamber. I'm going to be using Bladder high performance fork oil, which is 5 weight. Dal Soggio recommend using their own cube oil. I have looked up the specs. This matches pretty well. The problem for me with Dal Soggio oil is that it's very difficult to import into Japan. So I'm going to go ahead, use Bladder. I've used Bladder in the past for my Dal Soggio Sphere cartridges, and it's worked well for me. The chamber requires 185 milliliters of oil, so I'm going to measure that out and put it in. Okay, so I've measured 185 milliliters. I'm going to put it into the chamber. And then the next step is to bleed any air that's inside the cartridge. You can't see, but I'm grabbing hold of the bottom of the cartridge and moving the rod up slowly, and then moving it down. And I'll repeat that about 10 times to bleed any air out of the cartridge system. Okay, now I'm ready to reinstall the bladder. I've put a light coating of oil on the sealing upper part of the bladder and also the O-ring. And I'm going to install it. And I'm using a pin tool to fully install the cap. And when you're doing this, make sure the O-ring goes in properly and doesn't get pinched. Okay, next I'm going to remove the bladder fill screw and inflate the bladder. And to inflate the bladder, I'm using a fork pump with a needle adapter, and I'm going to inflate it to 1.8 bar, which is the recommended pressure. Okay. And then you need to cycle the damper rod a couple of times and then check the pressure again. And when you're cycling the rod, cover up the spurge valve, and there's a port here as well because some oil might come out. So I'm just pushing up the damper rod slowly to full compression, and I felt some oil come out then. And do it one more time and then release it, and then you can check your pressure again. So it's gone down a little bit, and I'll reinflate it to 1.8. Okay, it's 1.8 bar. And then reinstall the cover screw. And you can go ahead and reinstall the adjuster as well. You should note that this plastic collar it has a metal washer which goes up against the tube here. So make sure you've got that in the right place. And then your spring slides on. And then this collar slips onto the end. And the XR kit has an adjustable preload here. By default, the spring has 0 preload on. And it notes max 6 turns. So on my other fork leg, it took 6 turns to get it to the same preload as stock. So I'm assuming this one will be exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and do 6 turns out and measure and make sure. Okay, so 6 turns out is giving me 467 millimeters, exactly the same as stock, so I'm going to go with that. When installing the cartridge, you'll need to feel for the end and then make sure it's aligned correctly. And it's a good idea to have a look down and make sure it is in the correct place before installing the rebound adjuster. And the torque for the rebound adjuster is 40 Newton meters. And then you need 370 milliliters of fork oil in the outer tubes. So I'm going to measure that out and add it in. And the Dal Soggio fork caps are 50 millimeters, but they're octagonal, so you'll need a different wrench. And the torque is 50 Newton meters. So I'm using this DRC fork cap wrench, which has a 3/8 drive on it, which allows me to use a torque wrench. And I'm going to set my compression and rebound adjusters. The baseline setting given in the setting sheet by Dal Soggio is for the compression 13 out and for the rebound 14 out. So I'm going to set that now. Okay, so that is the installation of the XR complete. I just need to reinstall the fork legs on my bike, ready for my ride tomorrow. I will be making a ride video and I'll be sure to share my ride impressions of the XR kit in that video. So look out for the video if you're interested.